A simple plastic pen sits on a store shelf with a 10 cents price tag. Nothing about it feels special. Same transparent body, same cheap ink, same lightweight feel that barely lasts a week. Yesterday, that price made perfect sense. Today, the tag reads 50 cents. Not because the pen suddenly writes smoother, not because it became more durable, not because the factory discovered some revolutionary material overnight. The pen didn't change. The world around it did. That shift is where things get interesting, because most people assume price is tied directly to quality. Better product, higher price. Worse product, lower price. Sounds logical, but reality doesn't play by that rule. Price is less about what something is and more about how badly people want it, how hard it is to get, how expensive it is to produce, and how much money is floating around chasing it. Picture a kid who constantly loses pens. Every week, a quick walk to the local store, a small bill handed over, one pen in return. Routine, predictable, stable. That tiny transaction is what a balanced system looks like. Supply matches demand, no chaos, no surprises. Prices sit still because nothing is pushing them to move. Then something subtle happens. A popular creator casually holds up that exact pen in a video and casually mentions finishing an entire novel with it. No big announcement. No dramatic pitch. Just a passing moment that reaches millions of viewers. Suddenly, the pen isn't just a pen anymore. It becomes that pen. The one associated with creativity, success, maybe even identity. By the next morning, the store doesn't feel the same. There's a line outside, not one or two people, but dozens. Some want 3 pens, some want 10. Some don't even need a pen but feel like they should get one before it's gone. The shelf still holds the same limited number of units it always did. The difference is the crowd. Now the situation changes completely. It's no longer about steady, predictable purchases. It's about urgency, scarcity, competition. When 100 people chase 20 items, the price doesn't stay still. It can't. The store owner isn't reacting emotionally or trying to exploit anyone. The numbers simply don't make sense at the old price anymore. Raising it becomes the only logical move. That's the moment where people usually say, "That's unfair." But step back for a second. If the price stayed the same, the first few buyers would grab everything instantly, leaving everyone else empty-handed. A higher price slows things down. It filters demand. It forces choices. Not everyone is willing to pay more, which means the limited supply stretches further. Nothing about the pen improved. The only thing that changed was how people felt about it. That's the quiet power of demand. It can inflate value out of thin air. But trends don't last. Attention moves fast. Just as quickly as the hype builds, it fades. A follow-up video appears saying the pen broke after 2 days. No outrage, no scandal, just a shift in perception. Suddenly, the same people who were desperate to buy it don't care anymore. Now the store owner faces the opposite problem. Shelves are full, boxes stacked in the back. Inventory that once felt precious now feels like a burden. Space is limited, and those pens are taking it up without moving. The price drops, first back to normal, then lower, eventually even below the original price. That drop isn't generosity, it's pressure. When supply overwhelms demand, price has to fall to attract buyers again. The same object that once sold at 5 times its value now struggles to sell at all. This swing between extremes reveals something important. Price is unstable when driven purely by perception. It rises fast when people rush in and collapses just as fast when they leave. The product stays the same through all of it. Now remove the hype entirely. No viral videos, no sudden crowd, just a quiet, steady flow of customers. Everything seems calm again. But this time, something else changes behind the scenes. The cost of producing the pen goes up. Maybe plastic becomes more expensive. Maybe fuel prices rise, making transportation costlier. Maybe a disruption somewhere in the world slows down supply chains. These changes don't show up on the shelf directly. No label explains them. No announcement warns customers. But they hit the store owner all the same. The cost to stock each pen increases. Keeping the price the same would mean losing money on every sale. That's not sustainable. So the price rises again. This kind of increase feels different. There's no crowd, no excitement, no visible reason. From the outside, it looks random. But underneath, it's a chain reaction. A change in one part of the system ripples outward until it reaches the final price tag. That's when it becomes clear that local prices aren't local at all. A small store isn't isolated. It's connected to factories, transportation networks, global markets, and even geopolitical events. Something happening thousands of miles away can quietly affect the cost of a simple pen sitting on a nearby shelf. Then comes the most subtle shift of all. Imagine everyone suddenly receives extra money. Not earned through work, not tied to productivity, just added into the system. At first, it feels like a win. More money means more freedom, more spending, more opportunity. But there's a catch. The number of goods doesn't change. The same number of pens, shoes, and groceries are still available. Now, more money is chasing the same limited supply of items. That imbalance forces prices upward again. Not because demand for a specific product increased, not because production costs changed, but because the value of money itself shifted. When more money exists without more goods to support it, each unit of currency becomes less powerful. So even though people have more money in their hands, they aren't necessarily better off. Prices adjust to absorb that extra cash. What looked like a gain starts to feel neutral or even like a loss once everything becomes more expensive. This is where the idea of the moving finish line becomes real. Earning more doesn't automatically mean getting ahead. If prices rise just as fast, the distance to financial goals stays the same. Sometimes it even stretches further. Think about everyday expenses: rent, groceries, fuel. When those costs climb, it doesn't feel like a dramatic shift all at once. It's gradual, quiet, easy to ignore in the moment. But over time, the difference adds up. The same income that once felt comfortable starts to feel tight. And that's what makes inflation so tricky. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't ask for attention. It just slowly changes the rules. The finish line moves, and most people don't notice until they start running harder just to stay in the same place. The most dangerous part about all of this isn't the price increases themselves. It's how invisible they feel while they're happening. Nothing dramatic changes overnight. No alarm goes off. No message appears saying, everything just got harder. Life looks the same on the surface. Same stores, same products, same routines. But underneath, the math is shifting. A paycheck comes in, just like always. Bills get paid, just like always. Groceries are bought, just like always. But there's a subtle difference. A few dollars more here, a few dollars more there. At first, it feels like coincidence. Maybe prices just fluctuate. Maybe it's temporary. But over time, that small gap between income and expenses starts widening. And that's the quiet trap. Inflation doesn't need to be extreme to have an impact. Even a steady, moderate rise in prices can slowly erode purchasing power. What used to cover a full week of expenses starts covering less. What once felt affordable starts feeling like a stretch. Now zoom out and look at how people respond to this. Most don't immediately adjust their thinking. The assumption stays the same. Work more, earn more, and everything will be fine. But that only works if income grows faster than prices. If income grows at the same pace, nothing really changes. And if it grows slower, the gap widens even more. That's when frustration kicks in. It feels like progress is being made on paper, but not in real life. Numbers go up, but so do expenses. Effort increases, but results stay flat. It creates this strange situation where people are moving forward, but not actually getting ahead. Now think about how this connects back to those earlier forces: demand, supply, cost, and currency. They don't operate in isolation. They overlap, interact, and amplify each other. A surge in demand can push prices up quickly, especially when supply is limited. At the same time, rising production costs can add pressure from the other side. And if more money enters the system, it fuels both of those forces even further. The result isn't just one type of inflation, it's layers of it happening all at once. That's why everyday expenses can feel unpredictable. One product becomes expensive because it costs more to produce. Another rises simply because money itself is losing value. From the outside, it looks random. But underneath, there's a pattern. Take something like housing. Prices don't rise for just one reason. Demand increases as more people want to live in certain areas. Supply struggles to keep up due to limited space or slow construction. Costs rise because materials and labor become more expensive. And on top of that, more money in the system allows people to bid higher. All of those forces combine into one number: rent. And that number keeps climbing. The same pattern shows up in groceries. Transportation costs affect distribution. Weather affects supply. Global events disrupt production. Consumer behavior shifts demand. And currency changes influence everything at once. By the time food reaches the shelf, its price reflects a long chain of invisible pressures. This is why inflation feels so personal, even though it's driven by systems that are far beyond any single person's control. It shows up in everyday life. It affects decisions. It changes habits. People start adjusting without even realizing it, choosing slightly cheaper options, delaying purchases, cutting back in small ways. Each change feels minor, but together they reshape behavior. And here's where things get even more interesting. Not everyone experiences inflation the same way. For some, it's the same way. For some, it's a challenge. For others, it's an opportunity. Those who understand how these forces work start thinking differently. Instead of reacting to rising prices, they anticipate them. Instead of holding on to money that's losing value, they look for ways to position themselves where value grows faster than inflation. Because at its core, inflation isn't just about prices going up, it's about value shifting. Money sitting still tends to lose purchasing power over time, but assets tied to demand, supply, or production can move in the opposite direction. That's why certain items become more expensive, not just because of inflation, but because they're connected to growing demand or limited availability. This creates a gap between those who simply experience inflation and those who navigate it. One group feels like the finish line keeps moving away. The other adjusts their pace, their strategy, or even their direction. And this doesn't require complex knowledge or advanced systems. It starts with understanding that prices aren't random. They follow patterns. They respond to pressures. They reflect the balance between what people want, what exists, what it costs to create, and how much money is circulating. Once that becomes clear, everyday situations start making more sense. A product selling out instantly and reappearing at a higher price isn't surprising anymore. It's demand outpacing supply. A clearance sale isn't just a good deal. It's excess inventory looking for buyers. Rising fuel prices aren't isolated. They ripple into transportation, logistics, and eventually everything else. Even something as simple as a paycheck starts to look different. It's not just about the number, it's about what that number can actually buy, and that changes constantly. So the real question isn't whether prices will rise. They will. The real question is how to respond when they do. Ignoring it doesn't work. Complaining about it doesn't change it. But understanding it creates options. Because once it's clear that the finish line is always moving, the focus shifts from chasing a fixed target to adapting to a dynamic system. And that shift in thinking makes all the difference. It turns frustration into awareness. It turns confusion into clarity. And it replaces the feeling of being stuck with the ability to adjust. At the end of the day, the pen never betrayed anyone. It simply reflected the forces acting on it. The same forces that influence everything else. Prices move, value shifts, the system evolves. And those who recognize that aren't just reacting to the world around them. They're learning how to move with it. If this changed the way everyday prices are seen, make sure to subscribe, because the next breakdown dives into something even more unsettling. Why money loses value over time, even when it's just sitting still, and what can actually be done to stay ahead of it.